Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning class with Guy Finley. My name is John. I'll be the host for our session this morning. I'm here in Southern Oregon with a group of fellow students, and Guy is in Florida, also with a group of fellow students. And together we are here with you and about to see what we can learn, what more we can learn about our inner life and an opportunity to learn what it takes really to be an awakening and a free human being. And so glad you could join us. If you're new, our agenda for this session today is in a moment, Guy will come on and present a talk that will last about 60 minutes. When he's through, we'll take a short break for about 5 minutes to stretch our legs, get the blood moving, and then return for the second half of our class, which is an open discussion period with Guy, in which those of you online can send in written questions, and those of you on GoToWebinar here with me, you can actually talk directly to Guy, as can the students who are here in the room with me and those in Florida with him. And so through that discussion period, again, the purpose of it is just to deepen our understanding of what Guy presents to us this morning. And so glad you've joined us. So let's bring Guy on and let's get our session started today. Good morning, Guy.
Hi, John.
Good morning. Would you like me to read the topic and key lesson for you?
Yes, please.
All right. Today, everyone, our topic for discussion is sit beneath your own Bodhi tree and be set free. And our first key lesson is this: the end of suffering is not found in the pursuit of freedom from suffering, but in seeing through the very nature of desire that generates the suffering to begin with. The problem is not what we desire, but rather our unseen identification with desire itself and the endless cycle of conflict it creates. All right, Guy, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, and welcome to everyone joining us from wherever you are. Hopefully it's right here on the spot with us as we are speaking, but if you're listening to a recording, that's just as well. The main task is always the same, which is to listen as intently and as freely as it's possible for you to participate in the material being presented. And that leads us right into what we want to look at today. But I promised that before I got into the new material, I would make a certain mea culpa for what happened yesterday. During the Insight Timer, approximately 38 minutes into what would have been a 44-minute talk, the powers that be, or I should say the dark forces, decided that the stream had to come to an end, and it did. And I was sitting there talking to myself for at least 3 or 4 minutes before my wife ran in and said, "Nobody's there." But it cut itself off at a very fortuitous place, because I was just about to ask a question and make a point based on the material that those of you who are listening, and those of you who didn't catch it, I understand it's going to be posted on our website. I was talking about this idea of how there is inside of us what I call an eye of desire, an eye as an eye of desire, and how this is an incomplete unconscious nature that we don't know lives within us and we within it, and that creates all the time a kind of circular trap that we're unaware of until it snaps shut. Blake talked about this. He said the fox blames the trap. It was a very succinct way of saying that we always find fault with something that captures us instead of the part of us that got captured by it. And we're always captured, whether we understand it or not, by an unseen body of desire, by a nature that harbors that desire and insists in its own amicable fashion that we participate in its demands. But the case that I'm making here is that We don't see that this thing has happened to us, that we've been captured, until this trap snaps shut. And we don't know it snaps shut until by whatever name it is that we have given that desire. And let me add here that it doesn't matter whether it's so-called heavenly desire or a worldly desire. It makes no difference. That object desired, we suddenly see it's powerless. It felt like it had power because it empowered me to pursue what it promised. But when all is said and done, and that trap snaps shut, in that moment, the security, the wholeness, the love, all the things that it promised, which is really the same as a temptation, suddenly proved to be powerless, that I don't have the things that I was so close to. Have you ever been really, really close to something? So we also looked in that same talk, just a quick summary of how we imagine that this power will complete us, keeps us from understanding that which is getting us to identify with it, because it has, and Christ even called it mammon, it has an insatiable appetite that we don't see as insatiable because we see the food it promises to bring an end to our emptiness, failing to see that as we take in whatever it tempts us to take in, and we become identified with that, in that same second that we become identified with whatever it is we believe will make us whole, now we live in fear we won't be able to keep it, something will take it, and we're thrown right back into the temptation of trying to find out how to protect ourselves from the very thing that we thought had the power to protect us. We look at this circle 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways because the mind has a problem with it. It's somebody says, you're talking in circles. No. Your mind is trapped in a circle that it can't see is not the whole picture. So the point being that this perpetuation of this suffering born out of wanting, seeking, getting, oh no, it's going, we don't understand that nature and not the conditions we blame for our suffering, that nature itself is suffering. This is something difficult for us to grasp, that we have a nature that we live in and from that is the suffering we experience because it always finds something to blame for itself and sends us seeking a solution to the suffering it says has been caused by a condition or someone or something outside of ourselves. And this is an endless circle. We should all know it. Then I went on to say, if I want to understand anything at all about this, I'm going to have to do something that I've never done before. And you would think that it would dawn on a person earlier than later. I have been suffering my entire existence. Now, I don't know I've been suffering my entire existence because my suffering is broken up into suffering and the hope that I won't suffer, which is what we call pleasure. Meaning the momentary identification with some object that the mind has put up there as this glitterous, that's cross between glamorous and glittering, between this glitterous object, my mind goes to, that's it. I'm going to have this. I'll be that. I'll get free, and then I won't be mad anymore. I won't lose my patience anymore. Only to find out that our attachment and identification with whatever that object is causes the very impatience we thought the object would free us from. Again, what would seem another circle, and yet it's right in front of us. And so we don't, if you'll forgive me, you don't know anything at all about suffering. It's like living in a bathtub your whole life and not knowing anything about water. How can I be immersed in a suffering that comes and goes like shadows when the sun moves through the forest and not know anything at all about the mechanism that produces those shadows? Instead, I run from the shadow and I hope the sun will save me, failing to see the relationship between that which is creating the shadow, my reaction to it, and then the realization, wait a minute, these things are tied together. And until I see how this desire and this suffering produced by it is tied to a nature that calls itself the light, that's what temptation does. Temptation says, here is the light. Go to the light. Go into the light. Go into that new relationship. Go into that new deal. Go into that new plan. Go into that new travel. Whatever it is, just do that. And when you get there, man, it's going to be good. Except for one thing. When you get there, the same nature that sent you trekking is trampling you because it cannot be made happy. So what happens? This mechanism of suffering goes on and on and on. And for those who seek a way to escape it, all we do is jump back into its open, outstretched arms, and it goes, oh, I'm so glad you're back home. So before I got cut off, that's what I had led to, this idea that unconscious desire is pain, and that pain is unconscious desire. They are not separate things. We believe desire can free us from pain because desire imagines an end to it. But unconscious pain is the same as pain of suffering. One thing, they loop, but one hides behind the other. This is what we have to understand if we want to begin this process of as the talk title is said, to sit beneath our own Bodhi tree and be free. So that's where I got to. And I was about to ask the question before I got cut off yesterday. Am I still on now? Yeah. My whole life I've been a seeker. Everybody's looking for something. The problem is that not everybody knows it's the same nature looking for what it needs in order to continue the sense of being empty or the false pleasure of being somehow or other empowered by what you've obtained or acquired. So that our mind, when it runs into a wall, is busy buying ladders, formulating ways in which to get over or through that moment because it believes if it can, then it won't be facing the pain of coming to a dead stop. So it never comes to a stop because it always imagines a way to get over whatever that is that's punishing it, except for there's a problem. Imagine if you had a ladder for every wall, and then one day, after lifting 18,462 ladders, you realize, there's always a wall on the other side of this ladder. You would begin to suspect the dynamic that drives you to go figure out another thought system, because that's what these ladders are, a way to get past that moment. And that's what I want to look at with you. Is there really a seeker at all? Meaning, is there actually a seeker that is separate from what it seeks? Because I'm always looking for a way around what I didn't want to find. But I can't separate what I didn't want to find from the fact that I became identified with what I hoped to find. And in that hope, ran into something that says, nope, that was close. Have you ever heard that one? I'm getting close, but not yet. And that's what it always says. Until finally you become a total cynic and just drop the whole thing altogether. So I want to ask you, if you're willing to, if on one hand I want to be free, do you? Yes. What do I want to be free of? Let's go slow. We can call it karma. I want to be free of whatever the name of God it is that seems to know where I'm going and what I'm going to do and follows me there and puts a wall. Because my karma is to always almost be happy. Is almost always to have a problem. And they circulate round and round and round, and I don't understand. On one hand, I want to be free of karma, but what is it that creates karma? What is it that creates karma? I know I'm leading you into a question here. I'm asking you to see it. What creates my karma is desire. Please, do you see it? Yes. How does that? Well, you know what? I don't like you. I don't want this. I wish that weren't that way. I go, well, it's just my bad karma to know somebody like you or to be in a situation like this. I don't know how the hell I got here, but by God, I'm getting out. And then my mind goes to build a ladder. Except the ladder that my mind builds is made out of the past, out of content of who I've been. And I try to escape who I've been by returning to who I've been under a different name. Does that work? No. You don't sound very convinced. Does that work? I want to be free of karma that this desire creates. There's no question about it. But I want, on the other hand, to get all I desire so that I can deal with my karma. Please let it sink in. I want to be free of my karma produced by desire, and my solution is to get all I desire to be free of my karma. Anybody see a problem here? It's extraordinary when you lay it out. The question is, why haven't you laid it out? Why is it that I run into a problem of pain and unhappiness, and the first thing that my mind does is find something to blame, and then something to name, and then something to run after, believing that I can escape whatever that pain is, failing to see that the pain I ran into is in fact a kind of karma produced by being identified with a specific desire, an object of desire, and then in my identification with the object of desire, run into that which thwarts it, and the next thing I know, I go, I have bad karma. No, you don't have bad karma. Your mind is out of order. That's all that's going on. And in particular, I would add to recognize that whatever I call bad karma, we're talking about how do I get to sit under the Bodhi tree and be free? Meaning, what's this liberation? I have to gradually recognize that if I actually recognize that this moment I'm in, I had a role in creating it, and rather than find some path by which I can complain or change someone to something else, understand, if I want this cycle of karma producing desire, desire producing karma, conflict through and through, and coming to the same place over and over again, I'm going to have to ask myself something that I've never asked myself, and you have to ask yourself. It's the whole point of this talk. What if I stop running from my karma? Once it's understood, because what karma in the truest sense of it is the grace of God. Karma actually means justice, if you want to know the meaning of the word. So I run from justice because why? Who can answer the question? It's unjustified. This moment is unjustified. You shouldn't, they shouldn't, it's unjustified. And yet here I am, and if I understand properly, the fact that I'm running into the object of this nature that's imagined and become identified with what it hopes to free it, and then finds out that it doesn't, isn't because the world's cruel. It's because I'm listening to an unseen, obscene master within myself that's forever promising me, if I just keep running, if I just keep insisting, what? When do you run? When do we run? Isn't this always part of it? You know what? This pain shouldn't be here. Isn't that when you start running? This pain shouldn't be here. But if we actually understand that that's an act of insanity. To insist that life shouldn't be like this. And why is it an act of insanity? Because I'm starting to get this picture in mind, if you're getting it at all, because I keep playing a part in its dreaded appearance. So it's like looking in the mirror and saying, that's not me. Have you ever done that? Mostly we do, don't we? That's why we're always messing with something, you know. That's not me yet, but give me some money for surgery and a little extra makeup and some hair bobs or peeves or pins or whatever. Just let me do something to fix myself, and then I got me. I don't know if you've noticed that. You won't look at pictures that you don't think are you. You're looking at a picture, you look old. That's not me. It's the lighting. It's the stupid photographer. They caught me. They caught me in a bad moment. That's how you live your whole life. And you believe that the pain of seeing what is in fact inescapable proves that somehow or other there's an alternative to the way you look. Look, you find out, whatever it might be, we're all going to find out something sooner or later. One day you're going to find out, if you're lucky. My mother used to say, I don't want to know I'm going to die, I just want to pop off. And she got her wish because that's the best she could do. But one day, if you're lucky, you will find out for yourself that you have a certain amount of time, and then you will understand with a certain immediacy that you are fortunate among human beings, because if nothing else, you can start to realize how bad your values have been your entire existence, what you have worshiped without knowing it, and spent your entire energy field trying to bring into you in the futile attempt to make yourself feel safe and secure. There's only one safety and one security, and no matter how you describe it, it has to do with being in the field of all possibilities in God's life. So, everybody got this picture? Because that's the first long introduction to where we're going. So, we don't question our suffering. We question the source of it. Yeah? So, big transition now. I'm going to talk a little bit about Buddha. But I'm not talking about Buddha any more than I'm talking about Jesus Christ when I use their name. I'm talking about an individual who, in one way or another, exemplified and then became the center of a story that became a true teaching for those who understood that the teaching is about the lessons in the life, not about what we call the life as being the lesson. It's very different. At the age of 29, Buddha, for those of you who don't know, Siddhartha, he was raised in a fabulous place, king, mom and dad, everything you hope for. Why can't I be raised in a palace, constantly attended to, never troubled by anybody, and my mom and dad see to it that I have no trouble at all? But one day he snuck out, the story goes, and as he wandered around, because he never saw aging, he never saw death, he never saw suffering. He saw no suffering at all. And there it is. Holy God, what is that? Now you have to understand, when he saw suffering, it wasn't that he saw people suffering. He saw suffering in himself. And he didn't know how to explain it because everything about his life had conditioned him to believe that there is no necessary suffering. You don't have to deal with it. That's what your life tells you. You were raised in a castle by a dark king and a dark queen that has conditioned you to believe you're never supposed to be disturbed by anything. And the answer to the disturbance is to stay inside the walls of desire and live there and just imagine another kingdom that won't be troubled the way you are presently. So there he is, age 29, and he goes, see ya. And he wanders out, and it says that he studied and even taught others for a period of 6 years, I believe, certain spiritual practices and ideas, all of which were part of his search. He studied under masters. He himself became a master, all the rest of that. All that was his, but nothing that he found, including all of the accolades that he received, did one thing to relieve the immensity of the suffering that started when he looked in the mirror of his own life. So that was his journey. And he came to a point, what we're leading to, a point that you have to come to, that I have to come to, when he saw something that we too are looking for before we can be free. He saw something that we have to see before he came free, and how our freedom is tied to the same consciousness and its same discoveries. He found out that desires, even the loftiest of them, could not lead him to understand his suffering, let alone resolve the condition that he couldn't free himself from. He spent his life, as we do, suffering, looking out at the world, wishing it wasn't, wishing they weren't, wishing I could, and then realized really the problem wasn't in the condition his mind called out for being the source of his conflict, but rather he was in conflict with the world because his mind had always identified with a specific desire that when it did, you have to understand this. I wish I had ways to show this physically, that when you have a desire, the object of that desire becomes something that you identified with. That image holds in it power, pleasure, some kind of perfection to come. That's what you see. But what you can't see is that in that desire, in its shadow, isn't just what you want and imagine will make you happy, but in that same desire, hiding behind it, is the fear that, what if I don't get it? Or I do have it, but how am I going to keep it? So that there's always in every desire this, it has its twin, as I discussed yesterday. Christ said you can't serve two masters, you'll love one and despise the other. He was talking about this unconscious nature that creates someone who is going to master something and the thing they're going to master. And they're not separate. They are a singularity that we don't see. He discovered this. And I'm just saying, because I can't speak for Buddha, although in some respects I can. He realized that the antidote to all of his suffering was in the venom itself. Go slow. I'm going to come back to that passage. He realized that somehow or other, whatever the antidote is, because I haven't found the antidote. Don't you think you find an antidote every time you get snake bit by somebody's cruel remark? What's the antidote? Off the list. Every time the world turns left when you want to go right, what's the antidote? Get a new car. I mean, honestly, if you look at it, you will always have an antidote because you think you know what the venom is. And Buddha actually understood. With a part of him that you already have or you wouldn't be listening to him, so somehow or other, I need to recognize that whatever it is that's going to free me cannot be separate from the perception that I'm a prisoner. That somehow these things are related, but that I don't see it yet. And that if I could just catch a glimpse of this, then maybe, little by little, some of this desire and its negative effect would be canceled. Because if I start to see that desire creates the venom, doesn't desire create the karma? Isn't the karma what we call the venom, the unwanted moment? Am I going too fast? No. So the antidote to the karma must somehow or other be in the karma as it's revealed to me. Because if I understood the actual nature of the karma, I'd understand what creates it. And if I understood what creates it, I could stop participating in it if I actually recognized that was the truth. Still? So the effect was, for him, this idea that he had been blind up to that point, as we all are. I was blind, now I see. Blind to the cost of identifying with desire. Blind to the cost of identifying with desire. It's automatic for us. There's no you that sits there and goes, this is what I want. This is where I'm going. This is what's wrong. There's no you that sits there and do that. With God as my witness, it's a machine, an unconscious nature, churning out of itself first what it believes will save it, failing to see that what it needs to be saved from is itself and the objects of its own dark imagination. So he realized, again, somehow or other, I've been blind to the cost of this desire. And then I go further to tell you that as he realized that, he didn't want to see he'd been blind. Why didn't he want to see that he'd been blind to the cost of desire? Because if I actually saw that, something would have to happen within me and my relationship with desire. It would have to, somehow or other, something would have to mitigate it. It can't just go on unchecked. I don't know what it's like where you are, but I'm looking at a group of unhappy people sitting here with me. You should thank your lucky stars that you're hearing this. So here we run into a very important point. Karma for me is the proof that life is out of order. It's out of order. I'll say it more simply. You're out of order. That shouldn't be like that. This is disorderly, and because it's disorderly, that's why I'm suffering. This is how we see moments that don't align with what we're identified with and from which we're deriving a sense of self. Clear enough? Big shift, if you're ready. A truth that can change everything about how we look at life, not to mention our own understanding of this karma and our experience of it. Nice deep breath. You could write it down if you want to. It's not a key lesson. I didn't have time. I have 7 as it is. Order doesn't have a beginning or an end. Order does not have a beginning or an end. Which means every time we create order, what we're doing is giving beginning to something that we hope will be endless. The order is you get busy being different, then the end will be I'm happy forever. Order doesn't have a beginning or an end. If you look at life in any way at all, in an open awareness, you realize, well, where does this order begin and where does it end? And you realize it's always perfectly ordering itself. And I would include, for those of you that say, well, it can't be, because what about those people doing this? And what about that part of the world doing these things? All of that is perfect order because it reflects a mind that is out of order. Everything you see in this world that is painful and dark. Now you have to be very careful because see, you see things that are painful and dark that others see as not painful and dark. How in the name of God is that possible? How can two people see the same shadow and one go, well, that's full of light, and the other person, no, that's evil itself? I'm explaining it to you because it all depends what I'm identified with and whether or not that shadow corroborates or sits in conflict with what I'm holding to be true about myself. Order doesn't have a beginning and end. It isn't in parts. That's another way of saying this. Order is not in parts. Real order is not of the mind. Rather, the mind is within order. Real order is not of the mind. You should know this. Who has a more disorderly life than you do when you're angry and negative? And then you think, well, I've restored order because I fixed this, I changed that, and everything's orderly again. Except there's a problem, isn't there? Your order is subject to threats. Order can't be threatened because it starts in the divine and ends in the divine, whether we understand it or not, and nothing can threaten what is holy. Order, real order is holy, and awareness of order is holiness and your relationship to it. But let me not get off. If the mind is disorderly, the whole world experiences a will that is out of order. If the mind is out of order, the whole world sees and experiences out of order. We're seeing that now. Here's the big problem. This group says, I know what order is. This group says, no, that's not order. This is order. This has been going, the world's been out of order since the fall. So you have two people insisting they know what order is. Now what happens when you have two people insisting they know what order is? Come on. War. So one part of me says, this is order. And another part says, I'm not sure that's order. You forgot to put this in the order. You didn't get fries with your sandwich. And you go, wait a minute, I need fries. What about a Diet Coke? No, there's aspartame inside of stuff like that. And I can't. And your mind fighting and struggling all the time, trying to do what? Bring peace to itself by establishing an order that by the need to establish it pushes you outside of order. Please, do you see that much with me? So let's bring up key lesson 2, part 1. Simple lesson. Let me know when it's up, Eric. A mind out of order cannot restore order to itself. A mind out of order cannot restore order to itself. If human beings were wise, they'd all wear sweatshirts that says out of order. And not laugh at it. I'm saying it is funny because this is the way I excuse myself. Sorry, I'm just out of order today. Which means I actually know what order is. And you just caught me on a bad day when I'm disorderly. No, I'm catching you as you always are, defending the order that you say must be so that you can be safe and secure in your world, as it might be. So part 1, a mind out of order cannot restore order to itself. Can you see that? Let's put up part 2 of key lesson 2, Eric, because this helps explain the first part. The struggle to harmonize our life, as we imagine must be done to find peace, is a battle that by its nature puts us at odds with the harmony of the heavens, a level of being that cannot be claimed, only realized. There's a harmony to the heavens. God's life is perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. Even things that unfold as manifestations of that energy are still constantly being balanced by the will of that energy to bring that into a perpetuous, another word I'm making up on the spot, into a perpetual state in which we see, you know what? This is so hard for people to understand because we're so full of suffering and pain. Your real nature is peace itself, but it's a peace that includes all of the machinations that by their movement restore and reveal that place of peace. Reveal it. How would I know I was suffering if there weren't something inside of me that could see, you know what? You're suffering, except I don't see my suffering. I see what my mind shows me, the cause of my suffering. Do you understand? Versus looking directly at this nature, versus looking at what this nature points to directly to save itself from the darkness it's creating. So what I'm saying to you is that Buddha saw all of this. He saw that uselessly suffering any form of desire-born resistance, let alone what it promises to put an end to it, is out of order. Suffering any form of desire-born resistance is out of order. Now, because I probably need to clarify that, when I'm suffering because you didn't, it won't, this isn't happening, it's not enough, whatever may be the nature of that suffering, in that moment, we have discussed the fact that we think it's because the world, you, this, them, won't align. And if you were just in order with my order, I wouldn't be experiencing this terribly dark, disordered state. But what we haven't seen, and that we need to see, is that this nature only feels the pain in the condition that it judges because it knew before that moment how that condition should unfold. And that when you resist what is, you are automatically creating for yourself a sense that you know what order is, but that clearly you don't, because if you understood what order is, you wouldn't resist the condition that's revealing the disorderly mind. And that's what we do. When I resist what I say is disorder, I'm resisting the revelation that the reason I'm experiencing this thing as being out of order, because I'm identified with a desire that said this will put the world into the right order and then I'll be free. So I'm resisting seeing that my mind doesn't know what freedom is. I'm resisting seeing that it can't lead me no matter how I seek using it as my guide. I can't ever let it lead me where it promises to, because I can see that everywhere it promises to take me is itself just another iteration of itself in another disguise. Still tracking with me, everybody? So, big step. True or not, pain for us proves something is out of order. Yes. Pain is not the proof of disorder. That's the default situation. That's the default. I see something that's wrong, and I'm not saying that things aren't wrong. You have to understand. I see something, and that's out of order. When the fact is, pain is actually the proof that there is another order of being that can be aware of order, that is order itself. How would I know I'm out of order? We talked about this, I think, last weekend. I have remorse. And I'll tell you something, if you're actually working, your remorse will grow, not become less. You will see you will see how unconscionable is this unconscious nature. How it couldn't give a whit what anybody else is experiencing if it experiences in the moment with them something that causes it to resist and react. You don't know it wants to bury everything that reveals it as being unconscionable. That's why they murdered Christ. That's why every true master, every true saint ultimately it has to face certain things that won't be brought up here. But it's a fact. It wants nothing to do with anything that reveals it for being what it is, because if it saw what it is, it would have to relent. It would have to begin to give itself up, to sell itself, as it were. And in doing so, if we understand that, this awareness of suffering, hold on to your hats, boys and girls, awareness of suffering is part of a greater order of being. Unawareness of suffering is the lower order of being perpetuating itself. Yes or no? But awareness of this suffering is part of a greater order of being by whose light, in quotes, it becomes possible to see that in the divine scheme of things, hold on to your hats, these opposing forces. What are the opposing forces to me? Anybody that doesn't go along with me. You oppose me, I oppose you. Christ said, resist not evil. Original meaning of that, do not oppose what opposes you. Why? What was he alluding to? What am I saying to you? Opposing forces are part of an order of something that is forever being united and reborn in a new way. Opposing forces are the crux of creation. not your crucifixion because it's not aligning with what you want. Am I going too fast? Please. So what is it then that's out of order? Is it the world that's out of order? Well, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This world is in a heap of trouble. And you can see it's out of order. The problem is that my order is to punish you for being part of the disorder. And wanting to judge anyone is a form of disorder, isn't it? So something in my mind resists the appearance of anything that doesn't look like it wants it to look. Now, again, what do I want it to look like? Please. Me. What I call me. The careful work I've done to establish order in my life so that nothing goes wrong. I'm still working on it. So Buddha came to a stop. He came to a stop, but not out of resignation to the opposing forces and all the pain he was in, but out of the recognition that as long as he sat inside of that order that his mind was producing, where one day with another teacher, another this, another that, one more higher thought, one more somebody on a whatever, that then, oh, thank God, I made it. And he realized he was never going to make it because he was listening to something that didn't know what it meant to make it. And instead it was making him someone who was perpetually pursuing freedom. And he realized that's a dead end. There's no freedom there. He saw it as you must see it. There's no freedom there. Here I am, you say something, immediately I'm freeing myself from you by blaming you. Blaming is the way you free yourself from unpleasant manifestations in other people. And one day I was, but blaming that's out of order. You get a big hammer for yourself. I used to have one at the old foundation. It's a giant, 5-foot hammer, with a big head on it. Bang, out of order. Impatience, bang, out of order. Suffering over what I'm not getting or what's not happening, bang, out of order. Hold your horses. Well, how am I supposed to change things? And then you realize that desire promises to change things, but all it does is change the circumstances so that you can be identified with something else for a moment and then feel like you changed things. But you didn't change anything. I'm so happy that I'm happy teaching. I am, because if I required my students to be happy while I was talking, it'd all come to a dead stop. There's something in you that is so out of order that it can't even begin to suspect that being shown where it is, that a part of you clings to disorder and calls it order, is the only way in which you are ever going to finally free yourself from that unconscious nature and the body of its desires that goes on ad infinitum. So here's Buddha saying a little mea culpa and he says, I can't seek anymore. Not because I don't want to, because everything in me wants to seek. In fact, I've become a famous seeker. Aren't you a famous seeker in your own mind? Please? So what does he do? He wanders over and he sits beneath this Bodhi tree. And he resigns himself as he sits there to understand what it is that this talk is leading to, and then we're going to examine it more deeply. Let's bring up the third key lesson. This is very important to understand, even if you don't get it right away. Let me know. Resistance is the second suffering. Resistance is the second suffering. Suffering is built into creation. You can't escape the fact that in order for something to be reborn, it has to die at every possible level. So that the first resistance is inherent in whatever the reaction is that releases the creature to become a new form. That's the first reaction. It is God's will on the heaven on earth, and that earth being made into something intended to perfectly reflect that will. That's the first suffering. a creature dying to itself that it could reflect and reveal the glory of that which has created it. That's the first suffering. We're intended to participate in that, but not yet. We don't. But the second suffering, this is what we do all the time, but have no idea that it's going on, is what? Is I resist the first suffering. I resist change, unless it happens to change the way I want to change. I know more about how things, just ask me. I give a whole talk on opinion. You know what opinions are? Opinions are like a grain of dark sand that gets inside of a dark oyster, and that as it irritates and rubs that consciousness, it secretes something that forms around it until you've got this huge opinion. Resistance is the second suffering. Let's examine this. A disturbance specific to the desire that forms it. A disturbance specific to the desire that forms it. What does that mean? This is, again, we have to see this with, you have to look at, here I am. Do you think to yourself that you have like a laundry list? If I was going to say, all right, class, let's sit down and write down our desires. Now you might, get going, get on a streak and make a list of 12 or 15 desires. Maybe. I doubt you could get that far. Your mind has a desire for every moment that challenges what it's identified with. This mind, just like that, the moment something upsets its order, has another desire. Because the order, when it's upset, is telling this nature something's out of order. I need to imagine what will restore it. And then it has a desire and an image. And the next thing you know, it's restoring order with the very image-making machine that produced the disorder. This is what has to be seen. So that it's never, when you will understand, I'm a desire making, it's a desire making machine, and I'm not supposed to be part of its mechanics, but I am. Because I don't know where else to look for the solution, listen, to the suffering that it's creating, other than to ask it, what do I do about this suffering? And then it says, well, here's what to do. So the same moment, a specific desire is formed, and it happens just like that. You ever had the sudden urge, for whatever reason, to say something to somebody? Where does that come from? Do you think that is a sign of your power and your authority, your intelligence? No, it comes from something restoring order, trying to restore order. You said something you're not supposed to say. You looked at me in a way you're not supposed to look at me. Your posture is saying something I'm not all on board with. And therefore, in a heartbeat, without knowing it, I have a desire. The desire is the reaction to the fact that something needs to restore order, and I can imagine what will do it, which is putting you in your place. And once I put you in your place, order's restored and all is well except for one small thing. Who can tell me what it is? Every last bit of order that desire restores is soon torn asunder by the condition that challenges it, which is why the mind just goes on and on and on. That's what the mind is always doing. It's coming up with something it can identify with, and the moment it identifies with it, something challenges that what you've identified with, and it says, yeah, but, and then you're running around in a circle having object, desire, identity, threatened, object, desire, identity in this endless vacillation of a nature that's victimizing you without you knowing it, because you're participating in the sense of self that one day is going to free you if you just do enough seeking. So second resistance is what? What is this second resistance, if you want to write it down? It's evidence of a mind insisting that it can restore order through struggle. Isn't that what it's second? My mind insists I can restore order. You walk around, I don't know if you see this or not yet, you will. As people get older, how out of order they are begins to be inescapable. The body itself takes on disorder. So the only way it's possible for us to resist any given moment, which is the same as suffering, yes? Is because we believe what? There's an alternative to this. Ask me, I have an alternative. And the alternative is always what? to change the condition I'm experiencing, and never I need to study the consciousness creating the condition that I'm never happy with. That's mammon again. Let's bring up key lesson number 4, please, Eric. Read along with me, and these are all posted. Useless suffering over any unwanted moment comes to an end at the same time as does our useless resistance to it. Useless suffering over any moment comes to an end at the same time as does our useless resistance to it. In other words, the suffering over the moment isn't because of the moment's in order. I'll show you in a moment. What's out of order is the resistance. And if I actually understand the resistance is out of order, and I remove myself from that identity in that same moment, the useless suffering I was doing is over, and I can enter into something else altogether. Take a nice deep breath, okay? Because big shift, not so intense. I don't think it will be. Everything I'm describing to you, the great masters prior to us understood. Everything I'm describing to you. I'm going to read this to you. Marcus Aurelius. He said, this is on topic, pain is neither unbearable nor unending. Let me do it again. Pain is neither unbearable nor unending as long as we remember its limits and don't magnify it in our imagination. Do you not think to yourself, this pain is unending, it's unbearable, it's unrelenting? He's saying pain is not that, as long as we remember its limits and don't magnify it in our imagination. How do I magnify pain? Come on, by resisting it. And in case you can't make the leap, trying to figure out how to get rid of the problem I blame the pain on is magnifying the pain, because I create another identity that isn't supposed to be in that situation, and now I'm going to escape myself into myself. Negative imagination transforms painful moments into a personal story, and the story becomes identity. Negative imagination transforms painful moments into a personal story, and then the story becomes the identity, and the next thing you know, I'm on center stage one more time, trying to free myself from a story that something in me wrote, invited me to star in, and then closes the curtain. Let me go on. Plato. Everybody thinks these teachers had all these students. Plato taught pain restores order to the soul. Plato, pain restores order to the soul. St. Paul, in your patience possess you your soul. In your patience means suffer yourself and you will possess your own soul. So that statement, pain restores the soul, is pretty stunning, isn't it? Don't you think pain is destroying my soul? Suffering can instruct. It's not meant to destruct. We look at suffering as a destructive force, something pushed on us from an uncaring world. When we're starting to see, if we are at all, that suffering is intended to instruct. It's intended to strengthen and enhance the understanding that that the antidote is in the venom. Moving on to Rumi now. He said, the antidote is in the venom. You've heard that before. In other words, what he was saying and we're looking at, the venom is what? The venom is being identified with a painful reaction born of resisting some thwarted desire. That's the venom, the moment I don't want. Don't you think that's the venom? But hidden in this venom, that moment, full of whatever the animosity is a healing medicine. Hidden in the moment we don't want is the antidote to it, which is what? The revelation that this useless suffering is not my own. That's the antidote in the venom, which you'll never know if you're not fully present to what you think is the venom. And instead of providing an antidote for yourself, which thought can't wait to do, right? We understand that? Instead of doing that, you wait there in that what seems to be at first this incredibly poisonous atmosphere that you want to blame everything and everyone around you for the experience you're having. And then you start to say, oh my God, wait a minute. This experience is the direct result of something in me resisting tooth and thumb, something, whatever it is. And wait a minute, and if I stay in it, the antidote is the discovery that what I'm staying in was never me to begin with, but belonged to a broken machine that was out of order. And that's what order is staying in that moment. That's what order is. And that's the only place you can discover that order was here before time, that order will be here after time, because order belongs to the ground of the divine. And out of the divine comes all things that are orderly and ultimately perfect, even though in this world, in time, sometimes it takes a long, doesn't it? So I think, have you noticed how strange it is? This is one of the bigger lessons in your life. You've all had moments where you think to yourself, that's it, I'm done. Rhapsody. What's this is so stupid? What's the point? And I get negative and I start talking to myself. And then God helps somebody. I go look for somebody to talk to and complain about everything that's wrong and this, that, and the other. And then out of the clear blue sky, speaking somewhat metaphorically, out of the clear blue sky, something happens. And I see without any doubt at all that thank God that happened. Thank God that happened, because I can see now that at the time it seemed like it was totally out of order and everyone participating in it couldn't have been more wrong. And now I realize the only thing that was out of order and what was wrong is that I couldn't see the order in it. I couldn't see the grace in that. So that my greatest suffering becomes my greatest grace, although it takes time. But if I hate my suffering, there's no grace in hatred. There's no grace in fear. There's no grace in wishing that things were other than they are, because one day when I get them that way, I'll be in God's grace. No, you won't. You're outside of God's grace as long as you're trying to order what you think grace is. And you've had that experience, have you not? Where the thing you wished never happened, you realized, boy, I see what an intelligence behind that. I would have never learned this lesson if that hadn't happened. I would have never seen what I see now if it weren't for how unconscionable I was a moment before. And then you set yourself to the plow. You realize the task here is to deepen this, not run from the revelation that I don't want to. My task is to deepen this. The furrow has to go deeper. And nothing in you wants the furrow to run deeper. But you understand, as did Buddha, as did all true teachers, this thing has to be done. And so the task begins in that moment to understand that the problem, the antidote, the healing medicine in that unwanted moment is in the moment you don't want itself, and the moment you don't want itself is inseparable from your resistance to it. So I have to go into the resistance. I have to understand the resistance is the second suffering, and then want to study the second suffering, not try to escape what I blame it on. Hope I'm not going too fast, yeah? Let's bring up the fifth key lesson, please. Okay. Running from suffering gives it the legs it needs to keep going. But suffering met consciously reveals what seeking comfort can never reach, let alone realize. Running from suffering gives it the legs it needs to keep going. Haven't you ever wondered, boy, where do these legs come from? This thing just keeps, I've been running forever. If only I could run physically as far as I do psychologically, I'd be win the marathon. Because I'm always in a marathon with myself. Suffering gives it the legs it needs to keep going. But suffering met consciously reveals what seeking comfort can never reach, let alone realize. Last transition. Everybody still with me? I want to look deeper at the structure of this, and I have to move this through quickly. Key lesson number 6, please. Opposing forces are not disorder. They are one of the ways heaven reveals and reconciles itself. We think opposing forces are disorder. This is opposing me. I know what order is. I'm saying opposing forces are not disorder. They are one of the ways heaven reveals and reconciles itself. Awareness of these forces shows us that we are within them and they in us, but resistance to this revelation places us outside of this divine reconciliation. Why can't I see what I'm describing to you? What is it about my present level of consciousness that prohibits me from seeing that these opposing forces, yin and yang, called active and passive, that they appear together? They're not separate entities. One doesn't create the other. They together create existence, my life, my sense of self. And again, I've talked about this, but I have to brush over it. Our level of consciousness is object-oriented. Our level of consciousness is object-oriented. You say this, my mind runs to what? What it is that you should be or shouldn't have said. My mind then attends to the object of its thought. In that thought is everything that validates why it is that I'm painting. And in that moment, I have the solution. Go to key lesson number 7. The last of the key lessons for those of you who are impatient. Awareness is not produced by the mind. It is a living light in which the mind is seen. Awareness is not produced by the mind. It is a living light in which the mind is seen. This is what Christ meant when he said, I am the light. I am that which reveals to human beings the content of their consciousness. Awareness is not produced by the mind. It is a living light in which the mind is seen, and only in this light can we see the truth that sets us free. And what is the truth that sets us free? That we're talking about why Buddha sat down? Because the pain of resistance isn't ours. That's the truth that sets you free. The pain of resistance does not belong to you at all. It belongs to an order of consciousness that creates what it resists every time it identifies with it. It belongs to an order of consciousness that creates what it resists every time it identifies with a desire. So now, 3 questions. I'm going to run through them. It'll bring all this together. A, and I want you to answer. Is it possible for you to be anywhere other than where you are? No. Be very careful. I don't want you to rush through this. Is it possible for me to be anywhere other than where I am? Yes or no? No, of course not. How can I be anywhere other than I am? We agree? Is it possible for you to be doing anything other than what you're doing? No. Even if I'm multitasking, I can't be doing anything other than what I'm doing. So I can't be anywhere other than where I am, and I can't be doing anything other than what I'm doing where I am in that moment. Yes or no? Yes. Out loud. I don't want skeptics. Yes. If you are skeptical, tell me. I'll talk for another 30 minutes. Yeah. So we say no to both of those, right? Can't be anywhere other than where I am, right here, right now. Can't be doing anything other than I'm doing, which is being instrumented to express some ideas. And the third, if neither of those is possible, which we said are not, is it possible to be anything other than what I am in that moment? Is it possible for me to be anything other than what I am in that moment when I am where I am and I'm doing what I'm doing? Is it possible for me to be anything other than what I am in that moment? Of course not. But I believe it is. I believe that I can be something else other than the condition and the object of my attention. I actually believe that it's possible to be other than I am. That's what resistance is. Because I can't be this. Do you know how this Buddha's guy, this is before he sat down. Oh, Christ. How am I going to explain this to my students? How am I going to explain this to myself? But I see it. I can't be anything other than what I am right now. And all of my life I have been seeking a way to prove that I am not what I am in this moment, because something in me doesn't want to be that in this moment and has a future to escape in or a past to blame for its pain. See it with me? Yes. To understand those 3 facts, I can't be any place other than where I am. I can't be doing anything other than I'm doing in that moment. And more accurately, I can't be doing anything more than I'm being given to do in that moment. And I can't be anything other than I am as I'm aligned with and exchanging energies with whatever that field is that's describing my activity and that I'm deriving my sense from. Understand that is to put you at the threshold of a completely new relationship with suffering. Why? Because what are my choices? What are my choices? Choices come out of seeking. Choices come out of conflict. Choices come out of conflict. I know that you can't, but you don't. Choices come out of conflict. I'm going here, not there. You're going to be like this, not like that. I'm going to one day be like this, not like that. And everything is a choice based on, predicated on something that I'm looking at that has told me I can be other than I am. This life can be other than it is in the moment. And I can't stand the idea that this is it. But when you see, I can't stand the idea of this is it, you realize, wait a minute, what is it I can't stand? Is it that I can't stand this is it? Or is I can't stand the idea that this is all there is and I have to resist it? And the pain of that moment is me resisting summarily the fact that I'm never going to escape myself by any form of desire. That nothing I seek with my mind, nothing I'm drawn to, it may be educational. I threw that in so you wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I learn about myself through my relationships with desire. But the end lesson in all of those relationships is that desire is powerless to free me. And then that has to sink in. Which brings us to this unthinkable action that I've been describing. An action that is part of the unseen order of heaven. Please try to follow me now. I know you're tired. This action is part of the unseen order of heaven. What is the order of heaven? Everything's exactly where it needs to be so that what heaven wishes will take place can take place. So that the will of heaven can be done on the will of earth. You and I think we are heaven and that our will is godly and that what we have to do is get rid of the ungodly people within us or the few parts of us that are ungodly. Do you have some ungodly parts? Do you? That you judge? Who judges? Do you think God judges or do you make the sun to shine on good and evil alike? Why? Perfect order. So what's all of this leading to? What was the title of the talk? Sit under your own Bodhi tree and be set free. What did he do? He stopped seeking relief. He stopped looking for tomorrow. And he certainly stopped looking at yesterday to justify whatever he was going through. In other words, he said, I'm going to find the antidote in this venom. I'm going to find out if this suffering that I'm always experiencing, I don't want someone else's opinion about it. I don't want anyone to rescue me from it. Because I understand to the extent that I do, and that grows as you sit there under, what does it mean to sit under your own Bodhi tree? It means I'm going to sit here, I'm not going to look for relief, I'm going to constantly withdraw my attention from any object. If you know the story, how Mara sent all these things, to get his attention to this and everything trying to take my attention onto an imagined object tied to a time when I won't be experiencing this nature as it is. I'm not going to let that thought tell me what's tormenting me or what I have to do to be relieved from it. I will, as best I can, sit under the tree as quietly as I can and blame nothing and give no one cause to continue what they've done with me because I resist them. Give suffering no name. And you know what happens when you give suffering no name? I'll end the talk with this. You too remain without a name to protect. The minute you stop giving suffering a name, you too are free of the name that needs to be protected. What do you think you're protecting all the time? You think you're actually protecting what your thought is? Or are you protecting the nature that derives its identity from those thoughts? Do you see it with me? Allow that moment to reveal its right order. Because that is the right order. It is the only order. But it's not an order that we're terribly interested in yet. But you will be. by the grace of God. Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
Welcome back, everyone, from our short break. I have a couple of announcements, but I think I'm going to save those announcements for afterwards because Guy's talk went a little long and we want to get to a question and answer period with him. And I see a number of hands in the queue and a number of written questions sent in. So why don't we start straight away with that? And I'll save the two announcements I'll make. I'll save that for the end of class. So Guy, if you are ready, do you have anything else to say before we begin our discussion?
Well, I do, but I'm sure it'll weave fairly effortlessly into whatever it is that comes next, so we can get started.
All right, we'll get started. Again, we have hands in the queue. And again, if anyone in the room with Guy or here at the foundation with me would like to speak, just come on into the room or let Guy know. But in our queue, we'll go first to Anne, who raised her hand. So Anne, I'm going to unmute you and you can unmute yourself and speak to Guy. Just click the microphone and unmute yourself, Anne. All right, we'll come back to her. We'll go to Fiona next. Whoop, here we go, Fiona. I'll unmute you.
Thank you, John. Hello, Guy.
Fiona.
Well, I've reached a deeper understanding in quite a few things that you've said. Thank you so much. Just on pain, that conditioning of it is when you name it. But when you peel back that conditioning and you see the pain as it is, where you are here now, like those three questions, we're here right now doing what we're doing, feeling what we're feeling. It's the way it should be, because that's the self-emergent properties of our evolvement. And as soon as we start to name it, then that takes away from true relationship. It's corrupted and it's not the true order. So magnificent. And then when feeling the pain that I've mentioned a few times before of something that's come seemingly so personal, it's not personal, which I've understood before from those things that I've just said.
Yes.
It feels so personal, like this would not be feeling the way I was feeling unless that person did not do those things to me as a child, whatever that is. But we all have this, and it's not personal, but it's just so extraordinarily powerful to see that bigger understanding, the clearer picture.
Indeed, Fiona. And I would add a couple comments to broaden your understanding and to encourage you to go deeper into it. First, as you said, that pain isn't personal, but it becomes personal when we look some way or another to do what? Blame that karma on something or someone outside of us. Karma is not personal. One of the most difficult lessons, it's even in the New Testament, the sins of the father are visited on the son 7 generations. Karma is not personal. There is, if you want to use those words, the microcosmic version of karma, where 20 years ago I did this or said that, and it set a ripple into this field in time, and 20 years later it surfaces again, not to punish me, but to reveal the nature that didn't understand the right order in that moment. And then I have a chance to accept this karma and if you will, atone, the true meaning of the word, and in that atonement to be redeemed. So there's that part of it, and connected to that intimately is this. Everybody that I know, all the students that I've met over these years, everyone will say, I'm looking to, in one way or another, I want to be myself. I want to find my real self. But here we look at this idea and say, well, really, if you want to find yourself, why are you always trying to escape yourself? Because if you look at yourself, that's what you're doing. Except you don't think you're trying to escape yourself. Your mind has simply created another order of self, a better self, a stronger self, and it identifies with that, and the desire to become that self keeps you constantly running towards, on legs provided by resistance, the idea that that's who I am, and one day I'll get there. And you don't get there. You can't, because it doesn't exist, save for an imagination. So you can't escape yourself and find yourself. Can you? My students here are somewhat silent as usual. You can't escape yourself and find yourself, and that's what resistance does. It says run, hide. So you're saying, Fiona, and I'm encouraging it, I can't escape myself. And now I understand why I can't a little better. And the last thing is this, Fiona, and it's for everybody. I didn't have time to put it in. Don't think to yourself, you're going to sit like Buddha under this tree, for 7 days, 7 weeks, or whatever it is. If you can put yourself there for 7 seconds, you're doing pretty well. That's the truth. If for 7 seconds your sole intention is to be present to the idea that something is trying to grab your attention and place it on a place and time where you won't be experiencing yourself or why you are experiencing what you're doing, if you have 7 seconds of watching that mind scramble, you are 7 seconds closer to an understanding. And this is my last comment. What did St. Paul say about all of this? I hope you can put this together in your mind. They were talking, they were trying to, his disciples trying to kind of pump him up, that people can't help it. And he said, it isn't I who is in Christ, it is Christ who is in I. What does that mean? It means that this Christ, even on the road to Damascus, he was seeking to punish the Christians, and instead something came looking for him. So he says, not I who is in Christ, but Christ who is in I. You could say it isn't Buddha who is in I, but rather I am in who Buddha. I am in this light. I am in this consciousness. That's the right order. If I'm in the right order, everything is properly ordered for me, because everything about it is showing me where it is that this mind steps out of order. And then that's all you have to do. You have to start actually realizing that resistance is out of order, but it feels like it's necessary for you to restore order. Now I'll stop talking. Let's go on, John.
All right, Guy, we'll go next to Laura in our queue. So I'm going to unmute you, Laura. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. And hi, both of you. Hi, Guy.
Hello.
I've been feeling for some time, just, almost as though every single lesson is being curated specifically for me.
Laura, let me stop you. Yeah. Number one, your spirit is so heavy, you're actually swallowing your words. It's all blurring together. Wake up, A. B, let's be sharp and clear with our comments so that we can continue a sharp conversation, okay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm not sure. Okay, just a moment. Let me just. I'm here. No, I'm not quite here.
Yeah, Laura, I can't understand a word you're saying. If it's my fault, if it's my ears, I apologize. But you're rolling in something, and it's masking the clarity of your voice. Let's get off with you. Go sit down, take a couple deep breaths, and drop whatever it is that's got you, and come back, and we'll have an intelligent conversation. Let's go on.
Thank you.
Oh, we got Mike here in our chair.
Okay, wait.
Not my chair, but the chair next to me.
Can we go to Deborah next?
Oh, let's go to Deborah next.
All right, Guy, Deborah here would like to speak to you.
Okay.
She's in the camera here. That's the camera. The camera.
Oh,
There you go.
Hi, Guy.
hi, Deb.
So I love this talk. And, I've been seeing recently that I would say most of my life, since a very young age, I've thought of myself as a spiritual student, as a seeker. And as I've aged, I can see that I got a real feeling of a self through thinking about myself as somebody who's seeking. And what you said was so clear about the moment can't be any different than it is. And seeing, I can't be any different than I am, but seeing it is showing me this nature that gets a feeling out of being something.
Right.
Always something. I can do this. I can be different. I can be spiritual. I'm a God person. And there's nothing further from the truth. I pray to God that there is something in me. Anyways, that's all I have to say.
Look, this is all brilliant. This is the way it's supposed to be. Perhaps I wasn't as clear as I want to be with this idea. It isn't I who's in Christ, but Christ in I. It isn't I who is in Buddha, in this wisdom. It's this Buddha within me. Means that there's nothing to seek. There's no
Right.
time, there's no distance, there's no place, there's no separation between myself and Christ. No separation between myself and what is good with a capital G. But I'm always looking for and seeking what I believe is good, what I believe is the Christ who awaits me, failing to see that the nature that seeks something outside of itself to make itself whole creates the very division that desire requires in order to keep all of this pain in place. And then the more you see that, gradually this whole business, this whole division starts to break down. Because that's what it's about. Desire creates a me and what I don't have or what I don't want. Those two things are the same nature. Seeing the singularity and the movement of that nature as one unconscious self liberates me from the future identification with it when it comes up and says, come on, let's go. Right?
All right. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you. And if anybody's cold out there, all they need to do is, well, it's cold here. Come online and talk because I'm hot now. I'm heated up. Thank you.
Yeah, nobody's cold here.
Guy, you can go to, if Mike's in the chair, why don't we go to Mike next?
Here we go.
Hello, everybody. I like to, when I see something about myself, and I just love to tell everybody what I see, and we can all learn something from it. And what I see about this fear and pain wanting to protect itself by lashing out with either anger, aggression, arrogance, that wants to protect it and stay in place by doing that. Like, say if it's fearful of another person, it wants to lash out with this, keep it protected. And I see that now that I see that, I will not let that come out so as to not ruin relationship with other people. So that's what I'm seeing, is to not let any of this negativity be lashed out on other people. So that's what I'm
That's
seeing.
fine. That's good. I would add an encouraging word to Mike. You're learning here what no one else understands. Pick up your cross, follow me. Deny yourself. Deny yourself doesn't mean don't eat chocolate. Thank God. Deny yourself means deny the illusion of a self that is other than the moment that's revealing it. Because then you sell all. You sell what you value. You sell your opinions. You sell what you think is the strength born of being someone who knows that this person is wrong and they shouldn't be like that. You've struggled with this your whole life. Everybody here and listening struggles with some one or two dominating features that they don't know dominates them because they don't understand the depth of their identification with the desire that produced it. So if no one's going to talk to me like that, somewhere along the line, some part of me, and we're not examining the past, what insanity that is, But I can see the past has come into the present moment with me, and it insists that no one present themselves in anything other than the most amenable fashion so that nobody sets me off. So without knowing it, I'm acting out a desire that proves it's valid by having enemies and trying to chastise them for not being the way I imagine they should be.
Thank you, Guy.
Sit under the Bodhi tree for 2 seconds the next time someone sets you off.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, Guy, I have Chris here who'd like to speak to you.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I guess, in Florida.
Who are you?
Yeah. You know, one of the things I just love about our classes is whatever you're struggling with, you come and you just get deeper clarity. The key lessons were so helpful, valuable. And the first one where you said, the end of suffering is not found in the pursuit of freedom from suffering, but in seeing through the very nature of desire that generates the suffering to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, I've been struggling with something for a very long time I've known it's been out of order, but I've been too afraid to address it because of the image I hold of myself, because of the fear of what would happen. But when you see that something is so completely out of order, you have to do the right thing. It reminds me of something that this work has said, do what's right no matter what the consequences, and the consequences will always be right. And once a person really sees something, they have to do the right thing. Because if you don't, it just poisons it. It's when it's out of order, it's just out of order, and you have to do what's necessary. And you know, the mind creates all the stories that what's going to happen, and what's going to happen never happens the way the mind creates it.
Yeah.
So
I would just add this to it, Chrissy, that the work has always said that a person who is tempted to act against themselves but has no idea they're acting against themselves does not commit a sin, doesn't miss the mark. We miss the mark, and if you will, act against ourselves when we are conscious of order and then refuse to participate in that order. That's where temptation and sin comes in, because now I know what order is, and I'm still being tempted to create order in my own name and my own image out of fear of what may happen to this kingdom I've created for myself. And then to act in order and from order is to feel the temptation of something saying, no, 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 no. Because why? Because something terrible is going to happen to me. And then you realize, if you've understood this talk, it's not going to happen to you. It's going to happen to a nature that has kept in place everything that's punishing to yourself and everyone else around you.
right.
Okay,
right.
good.
Perfect. Thank you, Guy.
Good to see you, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
well, good to see you too, Guy.
Well, I don't know, John.
Okay, we have a couple of people in the queue. Let's return to the queue. I'm going to go to Teresa first and see if she'd like to talk to you. Hello, Teresa, you're unmuted. Are you there? No, it doesn't appear so. I'll go to Linda then, Guy. Hello, Linda. You are unmuted. Oop, Teresa just came on. Go ahead, Teresa. I just saw you. Go ahead. Click. Teresa, you were just on. Do you want to speak to Guy? All right. No. All right, we'll go. Laura came back on. I'm going to give her a second chance in the queue here. Laura, are you there? Hello.
I'm here. I felt the right thing was to come back on as you did invite me. I'm nervous, but I want to say thank you for the correction. I appreciate the correction. And I also want to say that the exact teaching, like breadcrumbs, has been right before me. And I'm so aware of a regret that it's absolutely massive, that I've created around it doesn't matter what's around. And this experience of going in and out of this lower consciousness and then into remembering myself, it's such an oscillation from one to the other. And I think that I am struggling to be here while I speak, and so probably that's all that I need to say, but if you have any thoughts, Guy.
Yeah. So all I would add to your comments are the following. It's difficult to remember when everything about our life seems to be going up in flames, which doesn't take a lot, I might add, depending on the state you're in. But to understand that there's no moment in which, whether understood or not, this greater justice, which could simply be called the unending love of God, isn't acting and working to direct your attention to what alone can release you from what alone has kept you captive. It's so easy, Laura, and everybody in the room, everywhere listening. We fall so quickly into identifying with whatever the dominant sense of self is in that moment. And once we are occupied by that sense of self filled with regret or grief or anger, whatever it is, the minute we're identified with that, suddenly I am captured, I am in a loop that I don't know I'm in, and I don't know that I'm in a loop. When I'm suffering over myself, I don't know that I don't need to do that, because suffering is telling me it's required if I ever want to be free. But freedom, Laura, is found in understanding the suffering, not in doing its bidding. And you can't do the bidding of suffering, let alone identify with that sense of self and have any hope whatsoever to extricate yourself, to sit underneath that tree, to be, as Paul said, to have Christ within I, not I within Christ. Then you're onto something, and you are never not in that position, especially you and the students who are interested in this work. There's always been a hand in bringing you to every moment, every revelation, but you must sit under that tree, in that awareness, in that light, to understand what the lesson is that is being brought to you. And it's not about tomorrow, and it's not about yesterday. It's about seeing the fact of what is, and then finding the antidote is, in fact, in that venom. Let's go on, John.
Thank you.
All right, Guy, we are about 8 minutes. Where am I there? Here I am. We're about 8 minutes after 2 your time. I have Roger here with me who'd like to speak to you, and 4 written questions. So what would you like to do?
Well, we'll take Roger, and then we'll move through the 4 written questions, and we'll end there.
All right, Guy. Here's Roger.
Wide awake, everybody. Wide awake.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Roger.
Your talk today just really struck me, and it helped me help reveal something that I've been attempting to sit under that Bodhi tree and to see, and about this desire and the oppressions that have come up, and especially I've seen today during your talk, was the fact that, Roger's trying to always create a time to come. And then when that time to come doesn't come to fruition, like it's been imagined, then Roger runs away from it and tries to create another time to come. And that cycles over and over and over. And if I were to take an honest look at my life, I would see that that's repeated many times. And your talk today kind of help solidify as to why that is actually happening. And the thing about it is that I'm actually seeing it trying to manifest again, and it's trying to happen right now. And that desire is trying to recreate that same scenario that's never going to satisfy the desire, the same desire that's creating it. So I hope I'm making sense, but this is more of an observation. And, but again, your talk added a lot of clarity to that. So any comments that you would have that you could, help pin that a little more solidly in my mind.
When Christ said to his disciples, "You can't serve two masters. You'll love one and despise the other." And then he went on to say that this legion, and that there is this insatiable appetite called mammon. Mammon is an insatiable appetite. He wasn't talking to some poor soul sitting there and the rest of the people going, "Yeah, he's just like that." He was talking about human consciousness. No one wants to believe that they are the subject of an unconscious nature that is insatiable and that hides its insatiability through always having tomorrow or yesterday to look for freedom. Remorse is the discovery that I've identified with this my whole life and let it do the talking for me. Let me tell it who I am, where I'm going, what I have to do. And when it's clear, Roger, it's the end of that. It's the end of thinking, man. You can't think your way out of torment. Torment is thinking. But that's all this nature knows to do, because as it thinks about something, it creates a me that's separate from what I'm thinking about. And now I can find refuge in these thoughts. There's no refuge in thought. But that nature doesn't know it. And that has to be seen. Not intellectualized, seen. And the only way you can see that is to sit yourself down under that tree, be like Paul on the road to Damascus, and welcome the light that shows you who and what you have been, and that there is no future in it. In fact, it's unconscionable that I have been that nature. And then clearly, Roger, for you and everybody else, to see, where does judgment come from? Resistance. That's where judgment comes from. Judgment is resisting the fact that this is who and what I have been. So the more I can judge myself, the more it proves I'm not like that. No, the more you judge yourself, the more it hides the fact that within you this nature dwells and remains out of sight until you do the proper work. You got it?
I got it. One quick question comes out of that for me is, and I think you mentioned it in the talk, is that the pain, the suffering is not actually, that's actually a telltale sign that something's out of order.
Correct.
And to use that as, hey, over here, there's some pain, sit under the Bodhi tree, so to speak, and watch it.
It's my understanding that's out of order. And I experience my understanding. Yes. Not the world is out of order as I understand it. It's totally different. It's a major shift. It is the word repent. It is to turn around and face a new direction inward. Got to go on, Roger. Nice to see you, by the way.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Guy, I'll go to a written question from Tony that she sent in while you were speaking earlier. Let me just scroll to it and I'll share it with you. Here it is. Tony asks, why desire? I understand desire is born of feeling empty or incomplete. Is this a divine calling or a conditioned state?
Tony, I pray that you can, I'm not going to answer the question at the level it's asked, but I trust you can understand the answer. I think this was a story, I'm not sure, it's connected to Zen or Buddha or something in the East. I'm sure there's a parallel. There's a man and he is dying from a poison arrow that's lodged in his shoulder. And the attending physicians want to pull the arrow out so they can treat the poison. And they start to take it out, and the man says, no, 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 no. You go, why not? I want to know who shot the arrow. I just love that story. This is us. Why would I ask why desire? Is it there or is it not? It's there. It's poison when it is unconscious. I am poisoned by a nature that tells me it knows how to please me and heal me. I don't need to know why it's there. Is it there? Yes, I've seen it. I've felt its poison. Every unconscionable action I take, every cruel word, everything that comes out of this mouth and body that somehow or other wants to prove someone else is responsible for its pain is the evidence of a self that's poisoned by itself but doesn't know that it is. And so its pain makes it mean. I don't need to know why I'm mean. Am I mean? Yes. If I stay with the venom, I'll understand the antidote. I hope you understand that, Tony. On we go, John.
Okay, Guy, come on. I'll share a question that Philip sent in here. Philip said, I would value Guy's comments on my impressions that this talk reminds me of last year's talk in the Pines and the discussions of the prodigal son. The moment we begin seeking, identifying with desire, the journey of the prodigal son begins. Not only that, but that same moment is the birth of the prodigal son. To even begin this journey is a step in the wrong direction. We are leaving the kingdom in order to go look for it.
That's precise. Now let me live my understanding. And God help me, and you'll have to ask him to. He will. On we go, John.
All right, Guy, we have a couple of questions that came in from YouTube. And this one, the comment came from one of our YouTube videos titled Bipolar Rage, How to Handle the Explosion of Anger. And the person writes, my wife of 46 years has bipolar disorder, which descends on her now and then, from mood swings to extreme mania and anger so dangerous that she abuses me, both physically and verbally, to the extent that if I react verbally, it is God's grace that she has not stabbed and killed me so far. The violence is so extreme. She lies and hides this from everyone. It affects my health a great deal. I am a calm, smooth sailor. I am 73 years of age and I feel helpless. Yeah. I've already tried doctors and medicine, but she will never admit to needing help.
I'm just sitting for a moment with your question, Mr. YouTube viewer. Here's what comes to my mind. With God, nothing is impossible. But I mustn't hang on those words as some indication of a hope to come, of a time when all of this is going to resolve itself. I must also understand as best I can that my reactions to the violence thrown at me, I must understand that the parts of me that appear to resist what ultimately is my wife resisting everything that sets her off, that I'm not to sit in judgment of myself. You don't judge a refrigerator for making ice or for not doing it. You understand it's a machine. Much is asked of us. But I promise you that nothing is asked of a human being that if it is asked, won't be given. We just have to understand what it means to wait for it to be given. In this instance, it's not necessarily waiting for circumstances to change. Your wife goes into a home or you find some way to, seek refuge. I can think of no greater form of grace in the world than what comes when we realize, as we are given to realize it through the condition we find ourselves in, that there isn't a single moment of our existence that isn't revealing to us something that we need to understand about ourselves. So it's always a question of how deep can I go into, in this instance, this rage? Not what can I do to escape it, not what can I do to change my wife. You've done all of that, it doesn't work. We will all be faced with questions like this. I intend to give a talk on the subject of death. We don't want to die, but we must die before we die. And that's the miracle of God, is that when we understand in this instance, I am in fact helpless in this situation. I've sought all the remedies that I can, and yet nothing happens to change it. And out of my loyalty to my wife, out of the love that I have for her, even as distant as it may become when everything turns dark like that, I must stay the course. And then you stay the course as best you can. Staying the course doesn't mean agreeing to resist or resent or wish that the situation will be different. Staying the course means staying in this awareness of yourself and this relationship. You do that, and I promise you, you will find something, you will see something that will change you forever. And it might change your wife. But if it doesn't, it won't matter, because you'll understand this grace comes out of your willingness to sit, if you will, under that Bodhi tree, in that light, in that understanding. That's the best I can say for now.
All right, we have one final question if you'd want to address it, Guy, and then that's all I'd have.
It's related.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leftover bits.
All right, Guy, in fact, I think this is a nice question to end with. It ties in directly to your talk. It comes from a person who saw your YouTube video called "The Lie That Keeps Us in Pain." And they say, in this video, you say the greatest lie is that I'm not supposed to suffer. And because of that lie, that's all you do, is suffer needlessly. Because the pursuit of what you think is needed to release you from your pain is the very consciousness and its pain driving you to take that position. I understand we'll go through pain, but sometimes my pain is so terrible that I call to God to remove me from it. I feel bad asking God to do things for me instead of just being grateful each day that I have breath. Your perspective on this is definitely thought-provoking. I hope that your message will help me look at my own suffering in a different way. In Romans 8, it says, we must suffer with him in order to be glorified with him.
It's a fine question to end our time together with, because what you have outlined is precise. In Romans, it is precise. We must suffer with him, meaning with the totality of this revelation, not with him who we think suffered for our sake, but rather him, capital H, who is the embodiment of this suffering, who has agreed to it for the sake of something greater than himself, and in that relationship establishes this connection between heaven and earth. So in order to suffer with him, we must, in order to why is God glorified in this suffering? Not because we imagine a glory to come, but because as we take part in that suffering, we understand without taking thought at all that the whole of this moment cannot be separated from the whole of myself that it is acting on, and that if I am present to the whole of myself as it is being acted on, then anything that seems too great to bear must belong to something outside of that grace and outside of what is holy. Then I have something that I can hold on to in the right sense, not cling to it as something to save me, but an understanding that if I will, goes before me, and I can deal with this, maybe just a little more than I did before. You do that, and then you will see increasingly what you are beginning to understand, and you will see more clearly that God never gives a human being more than that divine life hasn't already given him or her to deal with that, to transform it. That's it. That's all, John.
All right, Guy, thank you, Guy. Truly a rich talk today, and then our discussion is evidence of that. So thank you, everyone who joined in for that. I'll just remind you that our next class, the next talk of Guys that we'll be listening to is this Wednesday, another classic Guy Finley talk on Wednesday at 6 p.m. So hope you can join us for that. A lot was shared today. Let's take it with us, and let's see what we can do to put it into practice during the week, everyone. All right. See you, everyone. Have a good Sunday, and we'll see you next time.